The Last Hike of Elsie Harrow, Oregon, 1991. The town of Pine Barrow had two main exports, lumber and secrets. Nestled beneath the moss-covered slopes of the Cascade Range, it was a place people either left and never returned, or stayed in long enough to disappear without a trace. In the fall of 1991, it was Elsie Harrow who vanished. Elsie was 28 years old, spirited, curious, and according to the people who knew her, not the kind of girl who vanished. She taught 4th grade at the local elementary school, wore thick-rimmed glasses she was always pushing up her nose, and lived in a rented A-frame cabin about a mile outside town. People remembered her as the quiet type, but not in a bad way. Elsie listened before she spoke. One of her co-workers would later say, like she was always gathering pieces of some bigger puzzle. On October 12, 1991, Elsie told a neighbor she planned to hike up Old Hemlock Trail, an overgrown path known for its views of the valley. She brought with her a small canvas backpack, a Polaroid camera, a field journal, and a sandwich. She was last seen by a gas station clerk just after 10:30 a.m., filling up her rust-colored Datsun and buying a single bottle of water. She was never seen again, day one. When Elsie didn't show up for school the following Monday, Principal Joyner called her house. No answer. By noon, a co-worker drove out to her cabin and found the Datsun parked neatly in the gravel driveway, the sandwich gone from the fridge, and Elsie's dog, an elderly mutt named Cyrus, whining by the window. Sheriff Lyle Danner was notified. Danner was a tall, slow-speaking man with a fondness for chewing tobacco and an intolerance for hippie wanderers, as he sometimes called Pine Barrow's seasonal hikers. He personally went out to the cabin. She wasn't the kind to run off, he told reporters later. No signs of a break-in, no notes, just nothing. By sunset, a formal search was underway. Volunteers, dogs, deputies. They scoured Old Hemlock Trail and its spiderweb of forks. A few Polaroid snapshots were found scattered under a ridge just off the trail. Photos of moss-covered stumps, a blurry deer, and one of Elsie herself, using the timer, smiling, wind in her hair, with a distant snowcap behind her. But no blood, no clothing, no sign of struggle, and no Elsie. 3 days into the search, a cryptic discovery shifted the tone of the investigation. Pinned under a rock near the edge of Split Rock Overlook was a torn page from Elsie's field journal. Written in tight, hurried script were just 7 words. "It's not an animal, it watches me." That single sentence caused the search team to double their radius. Hikers were interviewed. Helicopters flew. A cadaver dog picked up something faint around the north bend of the trail, but lost the scent near a washed-out bridge. The case quickly divided the town. Some believed Elsie had gotten lost and succumbed to the elements. Others were convinced something, or someone, had found her. She was careful, said her sister, Monica, who drove down from Portland. Always left a note, always packed light. She even had one of those whistle things on her keychain. This wasn't some accident. She found something. 2 weeks after her disappearance, more pages of Elsie's field journal were found by a hiker named Patrick Velasquez. He had veered off the main trail while looking for mushrooms and found several sheets crammed into a crevice of a cedar tree. The entries, written in ink and slightly damp, were dated October 11th and 12th, the day before and the day of her hike. Oct 11. Strange whistling at night. 3 long bursts, then 2. Same pattern as last week. Cyrus barked, wouldn't settle, could be wind. Or that weird man I saw on the logging road last Thursday. Thin guy in old clothes. Didn't wave back. Octi 12. Early start. Brought camera. Still thinking about that trail beyond Hemlock. The one that curves behind the ridge. I swear it's not on the map. Trees look different there. Like they're older somehow. Rotten in places, but alive. Too quiet. Not even birds. Fog came fast. Lost the sun. Think I heard talking. That was the last legible entry. The rest had been water damaged. Sheriff Danner released the pages to the press, but dismissed them as ramblings. He even suggested Elsie might have suffered a break from reality, citing stress, perhaps a recent breakup. But Monica pushed back hard. She was lucid, observant. That's why she kept journals in the first place. The town started whispering about the man on the logging road, about the missing hikers in 74 and 63, about the way the trees sometimes looked, like they shifted when the fog rolled in. 6 months passed. No new leads. The trail was quiet again, save for the occasional backpacker, but Elsie's story lingered in Pine Barrow's bones. Then, in late April of 1992, a local boy named Jesse Whitcomb ran into the sheriff's office, pale and stammering. Real soft, like someone lost, Jesse said. We followed the sound and found this tree, hollowed out, huge, and I swear to God, someone was whispering inside it. When asked to take deputies back, Jesse refused. His friend wouldn't talk about it at all. Rumors started to resurface. The whispering tree. A local legend parents used to scare their kids into staying close. No one ever pinpointed its exact location. It was said to be ancient, gnarled, hollow at the base, and full of the voices of those who'd died in the woods. In June 1992, a retired logger named Wallace Griggs came forward with a story that was initially dismissed, but later picked up by amateur investigators. Wallace had worked on trails near the ridge in the 1970s and said he'd once encountered a man who didn't belong there. He was thin, dirty, and wore this old red flannel, Griggs recalled. Didn't blink much. Said his name was Tom, but couldn't remember his last name. Carried a satchel, kept saying he lived off the forest. Griggs claimed the man asked him strange questions. Do you see the lights too? Does the moss talk to you when you sleep? They don't like being watched, you know. He reported it to his boss at the time, but nothing came of it. No missing persons matched the description. No camps were found. The coincidence stuck with locals, especially after realizing that the flannel described by Griggs matched the one seen in the corner of one of Elsie's photos. The image was blurry, taken with the camera's timer, but there was clearly a figure behind her, partly obscured by ferns. By the end of 1992, Elsie Harrow's case was labeled inactive. No new leads, no remains. Sheriff Danner retired in 1993. Monica moved back to Portland, disillusioned and angry. A small cross was erected by Split Rock Overlook, where hikers sometimes left wildflowers and stones. But the story never quite died. In the years that followed, other hikers came forward with strange experiences. A couple heard someone humming, "You Are My Sunshine," deep in the trees, even though they were alone. A solo backpacker found an old rotted satchel filled with Polaroid film wrappers and a rusted whistle. One man claimed his compass spun uncontrollably just west of the overlook, and that his watch ran backward for 10 minutes. Each time, the sheriff's office waved the stories away. The forest plays tricks on you, they'd say. Then in 2011, 20 years after Elsie vanished, a documentary team filming a segment on unsolved disappearances in the Cascades found something unexpected. They had been interviewing hikers near the Hemlock Ridge and were setting up B-roll shots when one of their cameramen noticed something wedged in the roots of a fallen tree. It was a Polaroid camera. Badly weathered, cracked lens, but inside, miraculously protected by the casing, was a single undeveloped film pack. When processed, 2 images were salvageable. The first was of trees, tilted, blurred, taken in motion. The second showed a close-up of a man's face, pale, thin, eyes wide, almost vacant, wearing red flannel. He was holding the camera. The discovery reignited interest in the case. Internet sleuths speculated wildly that Elsie had uncovered a hermit colony, that the forest was cursed, that there were echoes of similar disappearances across the Pacific Northwest. A few even argued that Elsie had staged her disappearance, pointing to her curiosity, her love for mystery, and the almost theatrical quality of the journal entries. But Monica disagreed. She found something out there, she said in a 2013 interview. And I think it found her, too. The hollow tree, whether real or imagined, became a local fixture. Teenagers dared each other to find it. Hikers reported feeling watched. And every October, someone always left a single Polaroid at the base of Elsie's cross. The most recent one, left in 2020, was blank. Or at least, it looked that way, until you tilted it in the right light and could just barely make out the outline of a figure in flannel, standing among the trees. Elsie Harrow remains missing. Her case is still listed as unsolved. But in Pine Barrow, folks will tell you she never truly left the forest. They say she's still watching, still listening, just like it did to her Part 2, 20 years later. In 2013, 2 decades after Elsie's disappearance, a blogger named Theo Brandt arrived in Pine Barrow. He ran a small but dedicated site called Unfound Light, which specialized in cold cases and urban legends with documented roots. Brandt had come across Elsie's story through an old forum thread titled "The Girl in the Trees." What made it different from other disappearances, he said, was the paper trail. There was enough real documentation, photos, journal pages, police reports, to separate it from pure folklore, but just enough mystery to make you wonder if something darker was being kept quiet. Theo wasn't the first outsider to look into the case, but he was the most persistent. He stayed at the Pine Barrow Inn for 6 weeks, interviewed locals, cross-referenced weather records, visited the trail 4 separate times. "I'm not saying it's supernatural," he wrote in his blog's 4th entry on the case, "but if it's not, then someone, or something, has gone to a lot of trouble to make it feel that way. I saw her." It was during this visit that Theo recorded an interview with Dolores Hamlin, a reclusive woman who had lived on the outskirts of Pine Barrow since the 1970s. Her trailer sat at the edge of the woods with broken wind chimes and a rusted mailbox full of pine needles. She was 72 when Theo met her and initially refused to speak. On his 3rd visit, she finally opened the door. "You want to talk about the Harrow girl?" she asked, squinting at him. "I saw her." "You saw Elsie?" Dolores nodded slowly. "That morning, October 12th. She passed right by my property, taking the South Trail, not the Hemlock one. Different path. Old path." "Did she say anything?" "She waved. Had her little camera. I was out tending my tomatoes. I said, 'Trail's muddy this time of year.' And she laughed. Said, 'I like it that way.'" Theo leaned in. "Did you see anyone else?" That's when Dolores's face changed, a slow sinking tension in her jaw. "There was someone. Not right then, but maybe 10 minutes later. Thought it was a hunter at first. Tall man, wore flannel, but when I called out to him, he didn't turn. Just kept walking behind the same trees. Like what? Like he wasn't walking a straight line. Like he was looping, walking past the same tree over and over, but he never came out the other side. Theo included the interview in a podcast episode. Listeners debated whether the woman's memory could be trusted, but some believed Dolores might have seen the last human being to ever lay eyes on Elsie Harrow. According to old logging maps from the 1940s, the South Trail Dolores referred to did exist. It was a shortcut once used by timber workers to access a buried mill near Pinder's Hollow, a sunken grove 3 miles beyond Hemlock Ridge. The trail had since been absorbed by the forest, no longer marked, nearly impassable. In 2014, Theo attempted to hike it. He went with a local guide named Kyle Mercer, an ex-Forest Service tech who'd grown up hearing stories about Elsie. They followed satellite maps and GPS markers. They packed food, flare guns, and wore radios. They were gone for 12 hours. When they returned, both looked shaken. "She was out there," Kyle muttered. "She was definitely out there." Theo later recounted the experience in a post titled, "What the Forest Hid." He described the terrain as wrong somehow. Twisted trees, areas of total silence, a sudden chill that didn't match the elevation. At one point, both he and Kyle heard what sounded like a woman calling for help. They tried to follow the voice. It always stayed just ahead. Then the fog rolled in. It wasn't natural fog, Theo wrote. It came too fast, and it was warm. They turned back when Kyle lost his footing near a slope and nearly fell into a ravine. On the hike down, they found something peculiar, a section of tree bark that had been stripped away, revealing writing underneath. It simply read, "It's with me now." In 2015, a FOIA request by another investigator uncovered previously unreleased police files regarding the Elsie Harrow case. Among the documents were a torn shirt tag found near the ridge in 1993. It had the initials EH, written in permanent marker. A cassette tape labeled Elsie Trail Audio, recorded from a found voice memo device, though its authenticity was debated. Several unsigned witness statements, including one from a teenage boy who claimed to have seen a woman in white staring from a tree hollow in the summer of '92. The audio tape was the most disturbing. In the crackling recording, full of wind and static, there are short segments of breathing, followed by footsteps, and then a whisper. Many listeners claim the whisper says, "Don't turn around." Another segment later in the tape has Elsie speaking softly, almost as if to herself. "I hear it. Behind me. I think it's pretending to be a man." In 2017, on the 26th anniversary of Elsie's disappearance, Monica Harrow returned to Pine Barrow. She hadn't been back in nearly 20 years. Now in her early 50s, her hair streaked gray, Monica placed a single Polaroid camera at the base of the Overlook Cross. "I figured," she said to a local reporter, "if this place takes things, maybe it can give something back." She spent the night in a tent near the edge of the old trail. The next morning, she was gone. Search teams found her 2 days later, sitting by a dried-up creek bed several miles from camp. Her feet were bloodied. She was muttering the same phrase over and over. "She's in the roots. She's in the roots." Monica had no memory of the 2 missing days. In the hospital, she spoke rarely. When pressed, she said she saw Elsie in a dream, or a vision, laying beneath a tree, with her eyes open, waiting. She left Pine Barrow the following month. In 2020, Theo Brandt released one last blog post. He had returned to Pine Barrow alone, determined to find the hollow tree that kept appearing in stories and witness accounts. He hiked deeper than he ever had before. He brought thermal imaging, a drone, and backup battery packs. He never made it back. His drone was found lodged in a high spruce branch a week later. The SD card held over 4 hours of footage, but most of it was static. The last 10 seconds showed a hollow tree trunk surrounded by stones, what some believe is the Whispering Tree. Theo's backpack was discovered a month later at a ranger station 30 miles south. In it, a torn field journal. On the last page, she's not lost. She's buried inside it. Whatever it is, it's still feeding. I think it wants to be found. To this day, hikers still report strange experiences near the Hemlock Ridge. Voices with no source. Shadows that don't move with the light. The feeling of being watched. Missing time. And once in 2022, a report of a lone woman in an A-frame cabin, visible only from the trail before vanishing when approached. The Elsie Harrow case remains officially unsolved. But if you ask the right people in Pine Barrow, they'll tell you that the forest keeps its secrets close, and it doesn't like to let them go.